Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. Over the years, throughout my career, I've discovered that there is really no cookie-cutter approach to developing a marketing plan. While the fundamentals of marketing always apply, every business is unique and every situation is different. It's one of the many things that I love about our business, getting to meet new people, learn about new businesses, and help clients solve their challenges. And that brings us to our guest today. Liza Buchanan is the Vice President of Marketing for Sunstate Equipment, the sixth largest construction equipment rental company in North America. Liza has a great background, education, and experience for the role she fills, and she is building a customized marketing program to build the Sunstate brand on a national level and to drive leads in their local markets. Stay with us as we discuss the benefits for the marketer who understands business, how you must know your audience to develop a creative approach that works, and how no two marketing situations are ever the same. Welcome to Outdrive, Liza.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here as well. I think we've got a lot of cool things to talk about today. I always enjoy talking to someone like you who has started and run your own advertising agency. So I think we have a lot in common there. And I know you started a new role fairly recently as a vice president of marketing for a national company. And that's exciting to talk about. As an experienced marketer, always like hearing what you think is hot right now or what's really working well. And I know you have some real world experience in marketing to rural America. So we ought to dig into that as well. But before we go down any of those roads, let's start by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So as you mentioned, kind of have an interesting background in marketing, I think. I've run the gamut at this point, and I look back at my career and I'm like, what? It doesn't even make sense. It wasn't your normal ladder through an organization. It really was totally different experiences in corporate, in nonprofit, in entrepreneurship, in community development, and B2B, B2C. And so it's really been robust in just sort of the science and exercise that is marketing from, different perspectives. As you mentioned, currently VP of marketing at Sunstate Equipment. And that is, I'm about 2.5 weeks into that role. So very, very fresh. Previously was in banking. So did a little stint in the financial world, which is fascinating. And prior to that, worked for 5 years, as you mentioned, in rural community development. So we could talk a little bit about that. But recently married, 2.5 years now, 3 children between the two of us that keep us entertained, to say the least. And so, just really living my best life, I say, at this point.
Wonderful. And congratulations on a fairly recent marriage. That's pretty significant. Do you feel like, in looking back over your career, that it was a fairly natural occurrence for you to move from one role to the next?
I don't think so. I think most people would question how that all happened. And my mom says that I make impulsive, large decisions and overthink all the small ones. And so I don't think that a lot of times my decisions were easy or made a lot of sense. But, when I left the corporate world after 6 years, kind of my first official job, worked in corporate for 6 years and said, you know what, I've hit the top of this ladder and I've been traveling and I've been away from my family and I want to go eat, pray, love in rural Arizona. And that made no sense to anybody, right? That was a very weird move. And I just walked away. And so there's been a few decisions like that at the time were like, what are you doing? But it just always worked out into the next adventure.
Do you feel like marketing has been a thread through all of that?
It has. It absolutely has, which I think is interesting because I come from a family of accountants. So there's no reason that marketing sort of came with me, except that I really enjoy sales. And so I think it was sales that got me intrigued into what marketing is. And I think having a sales background is what's brought marketing kind of through everything that I do from that point. It's always been a piece of what I'm doing.
So, people have a different perspective about what sales is and what marketing is. What's yours? How do they fit together? How are they different? How are they the same?
Yeah, I think sales is the effort and outcome of good marketing. And whether that be in people or, just lead gen and some of that, I think that sales is what it looks like when good marketing is done well. And if marketing is done well, sales is very successful and looks very good. And so I kind of see that correlation in those two worlds.
I think that's a great perspective. Yeah, I always think marketing can't sell products, but it can sure tee them up and get them ready for the transaction to occur in any method and mode that it does. So I love your perspective on that. The other thread that I heard as you talked through some of your experiences was business. And I always feel like that a good marketer really needs to understand the business side of what we do. It's not just creative, but the strategy and driving sales ultimately. You agree with that perspective?
I think now more than ever, a previous teammate of mine brought in a book to me and it was called CMO to CRO, right? Changing the chief marketing officer to a chief revenue officer. And marketing has changed so much. It used to be perceived as pretty pictures, but now in a marketing role to understand corporate strategy, corporate targets, goals, customer experience and journey, and then the marketplace and shifts and changes in the marketplace and what it looks like to speak to those changes, it's just critical. And, I think a lot of times it was always like, let's make these business decisions over here and inform marketing later and make it sound good. Right. And now it's like, hold on, bring us in at the beginning because we need to see this whole perspective of corporate needs, customer needs, market needs, and how to put ourselves in the middle of all that.
So when you were running your own agency, was that part of your mantra? Because it is with us, is like we want to hear about things as early as we possibly can versus what you described there, where it's like, okay, now let's get the marketing people involved and let them do their thing.
Yeah, I think understanding the why is what creates compelling messages. That's happening when these business decisions are being made. When I started my agency, I was in a rural community. I'd moved to Kingman, Arizona, which on the map of rural, if you know Kingman, you have perceptions of Kingman. And we thought we'd come in and we'd be this digital agency in a rural community and our clients would just kill the competition because nobody would be using digital strategies. And we found that people didn't have a logo and they didn't have a good website to track digital conversions and they didn't have a marketing plan and sometimes not a business strategy. So to your point, we were really different in that we started asking business questions about how to market for them and became almost more strategic consultants than just a marketing agency. And, I think that really created a partnership beyond creating pretty pictures.
So you left the corporate world to start your own agency.
I did not. I left the corporate world to reset and I left without a job or a dream or a vision. And I thought, you know what? Actually, I was going to start a lingerie company. So I decided that was going to be my little side gig, and it would be, this thing where you'd, get monthly shipments of pajamas that fit your style, right?
Great concept.
I think it could have been great. But I got into Kingman. I moved to Kingman from Phoenix, Arizona. So from Metro, we're into a community of about 50,000. And I was sitting with a buddy of mine whose dad owned a tourism company. And we were chatting about what he needed to do, to market the company. And he looked at me and he said, well, will you do it? And that was this accidental stumble into, an agency and entrepreneurship. And, we never really had to invest a dollar into the company. We started with a client and just built rapidly from there. Totally accidental.
That's the best way.
Yeah, it was so fun while it was fun.
So your educational background is marketing. You have your MBA. How did you land that first job? That corporate job was the first job, right?
Yeah. So background in restaurants, working in the restaurant industry through school. I got a job in sales for a trade show company while I was in my last year of college and was just doing cold call trade show booth sales to corporations. And that's where that sales piece came in. As I wrapped up my degree, I was recruited from the university website by a film company. And I, being in marketing, thought it was video, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to be, in the movie industry. So I called her back, super eager to find out about this film company job, and it was window film, which is window tint. So I was like taken aback. I'm like, well, that sounds horribly boring. And it was actually a sales role. And I went, one to just see what an experience has to offer and went for the interview. And it was just the most impactful group of women leadership in this B2B male dominated industrial manufacturing industry. And so that was actually, even though my background was in marketing, it was sales that brought me to my first corporate career role. And because, I moved up rapidly in a sales position, marketing folded in under that. And that's where I really started to get into product marketing, product development, and B2B.
Well, I don't know a lot about where you are today, but it sounds like you have a really great background for it. Tell us how you came to Sun State.
Yeah, Arizona to me is part of my identity. And so coming out of community development, where you really understand sort of the ecosystem of healthy communities and the role that different industries play in that, for example, finance. That's how I got into my previous role, was really through understanding this really strong financial partner in the rural communities of Arizona and wanting to be a part of that from the corporate side. We had pretty massive changes in leadership. And so I think I opened myself up to see where are some new opportunities in the state. And I had some key critical criteria, right? I wanted it to be headquartered in Arizona because I believe in, investing in the economy where I live. I wanted there to be an aspect of rapid growth, a really strong commitment to people and culture, and an opportunity for philanthropy. And so these are my values now that have sort of carved themselves out. And this post came through just, LinkedIn, that I was personal branding myself as one does, in that space. And it was just such a fit, such an alignment. And it's interesting because coming from finance back into construction, coming from B2C into B2B, and back to this kind of grit B2B construction world, similar to that window film role, just feels a little bit full circle for me at a different stage of my career.
Oh, neat. And once again, you're back into a male dominated industry, right?
That's right.
So you had the opportunity to kind of set yourself apart, I guess, in a variety of different ways. So tell us specifically about Sun State Equipment.
Sure. Sun State has been around for, gosh, I think it's about 47 years. Started really on the principle of people. The founder, his name was Mike Watts, was working for a competitor in the space, didn't like what the treatment and investment looked like in the people of the organization, and wrote a letter that's now infamous and part of onboarding that said, basically, I don't believe in how you're treating people, and I believe that investing in your people is the key to successful business. So I'm going to go do that myself. And he started this company. The company today has grown from an Arizona-based company to, I think it's 16, 17 states in its territory. So growing rapidly across the country. And it's construction equipment. So construction equipment rentals. So, our targets are your general contractors, your project managers on the site of construction projects that rent large digging and aerial equipment, and, just kind of growing rapidly in that space. And although they're a 47-year-old company, they say they have a 7-year-old marketing department. And so they're really trying to understand and invest in the power of marketing in this space that isn't really well known for marketing effectiveness.
Yeah, construction industry, which we have a lot of experience with over the years, it's a very mature industry, but it does tend to lag behind others that are a little bit more marketing driven. So are you doing marketing for both like national or regional branding and then more localized, targeted as well?
That's right. Yeah. We're looking at it and we're saying, is this a franchise model? Like it's not structured as a franchise model, but does marketing need to address this in a franchise way? We have 5-ish branches across the country. And, what Arizona looks like is a lot different than what Tampa looks like, is a lot different than what Anaheim looks like, right? And so, how do we brand in an effective way as an organization, but also message in a way that's unique to the space and to the people in it around their types of projects, their needs, and what that looks like?
So you have some pretty good sized competitors, I believe, national competitors, probably local competitors as well. How do you set yourself apart? What's the difference?
It's people, which talk about alignment, right? But a lot of the needs of the customer base here are on time, working equipment, right? Good price. But it's still about your rep and it's still about the relationship that you have because when you're project manager on a huge site or a small site and you're responsible for the timelines and the effectiveness of, this project, and you get this piece of equipment that isn't working and suddenly there's nobody to talk to, right? You need a partner in that work. You want a partner who's as invested in the outcome as you are because it's really you on the line, right? And so our people, we started from the beginning. It's about investing in our people and our people investing in our customers and saying, if you need a human to help you solve a problem, we're here and we're responsive and we're invested in your success.
So you started in Phoenix and now you have 105-ish locations. What was the growth trajectory? How did it expand and why?
I think, and keep in mind if I'm learning, then day 12 maybe, but you could tell onboarding was good because I got some info. But it really started organic. It really started just boots on the ground, good people going out and getting the business and winning that business through a relationship. The industry now is really growing through acquisition. And so there's a there's a pie of construction equipment needs out there. And there's a lot of people serving in that space. And with so much overhead, when you open a branch and have this large physical footprint, of equipment, it really is about looking at really intelligent and acquisitions that make sense, right? Value aligned organizations that can come on board with the people and the perspective and the brand and reputation that align and growing through acquisition.
So jumping into your, pretty new role, what kind of challenges are you facing as you get started?
So don't tell anyone.
Okay, nobody's going to hear this.
Like I said, it's a pretty young department. And so in that, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to prove what marketing can do. So I think first challenge is making sure that we have the team structure to support the priority that will support the organizational goal. And so we're really looking at what are we working on? We're working on a lot, but are we working on the right things? Everybody wants a flyer. Every rep needs a flyer. and, and you're like, do we? What do you need that for? And why is that so different than the last flyer? But what is the work and who's doing the work within our department? Are we doing the right work? We are shifting to a digital strategy, right? So we've got to really be sophisticated in our digital acquisition and communication. And so we need tools that do that. And so we are right in the heart of launching CRM, a robust Salesforce platform. And we are looking at the website and saying, is this a tool that's functioning in the way we're going to need it to market successfully? So looking at our tools and making sure they're ready for the strategies that we need to implement right now are probably kind of the two things that are key.
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity to really expand the marketing footprint. So I'm guessing then that many resources have been allocated towards more traditional means of advertising. And now this shift or addition of the digital, kind of a digital approach, I guess, is it challenging to balance those?
Oh, I think it's going to be very challenging to balance those. Yeah. And just sales reps, right? Like currently, sales believes that marketing's role is to provide them with tools, right? Physical conversation pieces. But when you're shifting that to a perspective of leads, right? Where marketing is providing you with warm leads, that's different. And you have to convince them that that's real and then that can happen, right? And so there's balancing that expectation of our customer, our salespeople, but also, the brand. And so I've worked previously in organizations that believe that every dollar spent by marketing should result in an app. So, what is our cost of an app? And that's it. That's all we're looking at. And so every dollar was going into performance marketing and $0 were going into brand. And what happened was a new leader came in and said, nobody knows you. Right. And we're like, yeah, that's right. That's true. But we haven't been able to spend any money on traditional or, brand marketing because it had to be tied to this return. So I don't think it's science. I wouldn't tell everybody to go write this down and do it. But for me, kind of the mix that I found is about 30% of your dollars going into traditional brand efforts and about 70% going into performance and digital acquisition strategies seems to be a good start that I've found. And usually you can get approval on that. Like I'll spend 70% on things that return and I need 30% kind of to get our name out there and make sure people know us. But the truth is it's a lot of work to push your brand into somebody who doesn't know it, right? So when you're just doing SEM and somebody's looking for construction equipment and they find you, your forklift is as good as anybody else's unless they know the brand and believe in something different. So both are important.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Is your sales organization excited about these new tools that you bring into market?
I think they are hopeful, I think would be the word. They haven't seen it. It sounds so foreign. I mean, we talk in marketing jargon and we so firmly believe in all of these things that we can do. And we talk in metrics that people are like, what does that even mean to me? So I think they're hopeful that it can matter, but really proof's going to be in the pudding.
Sure. So are you living now in Phoenix in the city?
I do. Yep.
Why don't you contrast that for us versus Kingman, where you were before?
There's beauty in both. When I moved to Kingman, the thing that struck me and filled my heart, I think, the fastest was knowing people and being known, being a big fish in a small pond, and just the connectivity of knowing who's who and what's happening and knowing that you could make a difference, that being there and being invested, you could make a difference fairly quickly in a rural community. It's different in a metro community. It's the same if you really invest a lot of time and get involved, but it's harder to be somebody and it's harder to make a difference as an individual in a metro community. I think that's one difference. So in some ways, living in Kingman, I loved it, and then when I left it, I loved it. Being anonymous versus being known, there's good and bad, and it depends on what phase of life you're in, really.
Sure. But I know that you like to give back. And so I know that you like to be involved. And I know you've done some teaching. I'm sure you've done some other community related activities. I did a little teaching as an adjunct professor myself for a few years, really enjoyed it. Always felt like I was learning more than the students were learning just by taking them back through it. But what attracted you to that?
A couple things. The one longtime friend of mine is the dean at the university that I was teaching. And so she, said, you really would be a great adjunct professor. And I was like, that sounds fun. So one, it was sort of being pulled into it a little bit, recommended to it. But the reason it was compelling was my university experience wasn't great. It was a little subpar, I would say. And especially my master's degree was an online, version because I was living in a rural community. And so I really wanted to figure out how to get beyond the word count and be a teacher that came out from behind, the word count box and said something. And that was kind of, my interest in seeing who's coming into the marketing field and where they at this stage of life.
So I always believe that as an adjunct, you bring a different perspective. You've got typically business or some sort of outside experience that you're going to share with your classes that maybe someone that's in purely an academic role doesn't have. What kind of things were you able to share with your students that maybe they might not have gotten any other way?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of sharing failures. I like to laugh at myself and make that hopefully helpful to others. I do think, one of the things that I tried to do that was a little bit different was messaging each of them and just a question of marketing is broad. Where is your passion and your interest and where would you like to go? And for those that took the time to respond, that became a really personal then conversation. And how can I help, right? Trying to understand where they were challenges that they were trying to overcome in this part of their career path, and what experiences did I have or connections could I make that could help them exactly where they were at. And if you help one out of your class load of 105 or whatever it is, right, maybe that's helpful. So that was kind of my approach.
I think that's very creative and really pretty fundamental when you think about it, because you're just getting to know your audience and what they want out of it. I always like the approach, like when we're talking to a prospective new customer, maybe it's a new client or whatever, to always, get them to tell what they're looking for, what they're trying to get out of that meeting so that you can speak to that versus just, it's not all about us. It is all about them.
Right? We spend a lot of time talking about ourselves and then realize nobody's listening. Right? We lost them somewhere, but people love to talk about themselves. And so, I think just trying to come out from behind, the screen and let them know there's a human, a professional marketing person behind the screen that, beyond what you're learning in this textbook can maybe help in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome approach. So I sort of skipped over your financial experience, I think. I think I did more recapturing your career path than asking you to take us through that. But I know you spent some time as a director of rural programs at Local First Arizona. And, anytime I hear the word rural, it's like, whoop, fireworks go off. This person's in tune. Tell us about that experience.
Coming out of Kingman, having been a business owner in a rural town, a marketing agency in a rural town, I learned a lot. We had a lot of successes. We hit a lot of obstacles, and there are personal challenges in that. It's just rural, right? It becomes personal. And I wanted to take what I'd learned in that space across the state. And Local First Arizona is an organization that every state should have invested in advocating for buying local, eating local, traveling local, banking local. So I went to the founder and I said, I want to do this. And she said, great, let's make it happen. And so my role was really to build out programming that supported rural communities where they were at. And that was the lesson I think I learned most in Kingman. Is I came in as a solution provider, right? I was like, I can fix this. I don't need anybody else. I can do this. I will fix this for you. And they didn't ask me to. And I found out they really need to, right? So the first lesson I learned was go in and find out what they're trying to do, right? And then how can you help and get buy-in to that? And they have to be a part of it. You cannot do it without their input, their involvement, their collaboration. There's too much ownership. There's too much passion in rural. So that was really where I started. And different communities needed different things. Some of them needed a tourism effort and they needed to know what their value proposition was in tourism. Some of them needed workforce development and how can we appeal to employees moving here and how can we create a compelling message to get people to live and play and work in our space for our employers. And it was just a variety of things. Some of them needed a economic development strategic plan, and we'd be working on strategic planning with them. And it was always different. It was always winging it. And it was always really, really, really collaborative.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I bet you met a lot of interesting people in that process.
Life-changing experiences truly for me in the people I met, the lessons I learned, the work that we did. Unbelievable. So lucky.
So, what do you find about the challenges of rural marketing or rural development?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do we have enough time for that?
Yeah, where are we at? Rural marketing is so difficult because there's really no one solution. Even when you think about channel, right? Marketing channel. Is it the local newspaper? I mean, you wouldn't think so. Nobody reads that, right? But they do. And so, okay, what's local media and how can I get good partnerships there? Television? I mean, no, not usually, right? They're usually getting some metro message that isn't localized to them and that nobody's watching that. So where do you put your message so that people hear it? And I think it becomes so much more diversified. You have to do it all. You have to really know local media. You have to be a good partner. You have to go on the local podcast and the local news channel, and you have to just share because you're going to hit a portion of that market, But then you also have to hit social because some of them are active on social and they are learning what that looks like and how to use that, those platforms. And more now than ever, I think COVID changed the technology ability so much, and really rapidly moved that forward for our rural communities. So I think there's still an assumption that digital advertising in rural doesn't make sense, but that's not the case anymore. That's not true.
No, it's really not. And I think you hit the hammer on the head. There's really no templated solution to any marketing challenge. It's so customized to a particular situation, need, want, objective, and all that, which just cries out, hey, you need to take a custom approach to every solution.
Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of big agencies don't want to do it, right? Like they want to put you in a box and plug you into their media plan and execute, right? And efficiencies and what's the revenue and net income on this account. That isn't rural. you have to know the town, you have to know the people, you have to invest your time, and you have to customize.
Yeah, it's not a commodity.
No.
So living in Arizona, and I love Arizona, it's one of my favorite places in the world. What do you like to do in your free time? You probably like it outdoors because it's beautiful there.
Well, when it's not burning hot.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, like I mentioned, been just recently married for about 2.5 years, coming out of COVID, and so we're still building our life together. And it's fun. We have a 24-year-old. She's 20. She just turned 24. 15-year-old and a 19-year-old, and so they're very hip and they're doing very cool things. And for some reason, they want to hang out with us, which is great and hard. So we do a lot of concerts, and just the music selections are always different, but learning a lot about pop culture. Football, we are a huge football family. So I'm a Cardinals fan. My husband is a Rams fan. It's an interesting dynamic, but we have a good time and we like to travel and go see other stadiums and see what other teams are about and experience that. And then, like you said, I think just exploring Arizona's rural communities. We actually are lucky enough. We have a website. It's ruralaz.com. And you can build an itinerary in a rural community across the state. And it's just fascinating. I mean, we have wine culture here in North and South Arizona. We have pine trees and snow. People don't think that, right? So you can get up and into the woods within 2 hours of Phoenix. We've got so much history and culture in many of our communities, a lot of indigenous cultures, in cities and towns across the state. And there's just a lot to explore. And there's nothing better to me than walking in a rural communities downtown and just seeing where people hang out.
Sounds like a great lifestyle. So, who is the driving organization behind ruralaz.com?
That is Local First Arizona.
Awesome. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
We've had the rural theme throughout our whole conversation. When I say the words rural America, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. To me, I immediately think about, I think history, but more so I think about story, right? There's a story to me in every town. And so I immediately almost get nostalgic and curious. Like, well, what is the story? What's the history here? And fascinated by that. I think about unique buildings and infrastructure. Every community seems like they have that one place everybody keeps hoping they'll renovate, right? And it's haunted, of course, right? So what is that one? And what are those unique buildings and history behind those? And then, just kind of third places, right? I think about being outside. I think about being in the community in parks and, like I mentioned, in downtown spaces. I think about winding drives. There's always that drive people take, in and out of the space. And so I just think there's so much beauty in it. Yeah, that's what I see.
I see a lot of those same things every day. It's awesome. Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, Eliza, and learning about what you're up to. As we kind of wrap up today, what else would you like to share with our OutDrive audience that you think they might find interesting or maybe inspiring?
Yeah. I look at a brand, there's your logo is what you wear, right? And your brand is who you are. And in rural marketing and identity development, right? Would you ever drive past a person and know who they are? Absolutely not. right? And rural communities are the same way. Never drive by and think that you have any understanding of who that community is. You have to get involved. You have to go speak to them and get to know them. And in rural, its people is as much a part of its brand as any logo we put on it. So get to know them and get to know that story.
Very insightful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
And thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much. So nice speaking with you.
Thank you. Same. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. Head on over to your favorite podcast platform and give us a nice rating and review if you would, please. And I hope you've enjoyed our visit with Liza Buchanan, Vice President of Marketing at Sunstate Equipment. And come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to eCallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.